Hello and welcome. I am your host of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Author Karen E. Osborne. I have five novels out. The latest is Justice for Emerson. I am so glad that you're here. This is a space for readers and writers to come together and talk about books. So Lisa and I only met, I don't know, 3 months ago, maybe. And yet we have just bonded. There's so many wonderful things about this woman. I can't wait to introduce you to her. Uh, Lisa it's Towles, right?
Yep, tolls.
Yes. Do people ever call you Towels?
Yes, and the first time I and the first time I met my husband, I pronounced it that way. So yes, it's told it's a Scottish name, so it's a silent W.
Ah,
Mm.
cool. So this is the amazing Lisa Towles. And there's so many things for us to talk about because she is a fiction writer, she is a self-help writer, she is an author coach, she has a gorgeous magazine. Oh my gosh, this magazine is so gorgeous. So let's just and a podcast. So let's start off though with a little bit of background. So, how did you get started? Was it the mystery writing that came first, or the coaching? Kind of give us a little background.
Writing came decades before the podcast or my story impact platform that includes the magazine and the podcast and the and consulting. I started writing like you, I think, when I interviewed you on my podcast. We've both been writing since early childhood, and I wrote my first book when I was 20, and my first published book was in 2001, and so I've been doing that for a long time as kind of the continuous thread throughout my like corporate life. I worked in tech for 18 years, so almost
Mhm.
2 decades of my life immersed in that world, such as it is. And actually, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from that. I was doing marketing and communications, which is very much adjacent to what we do as authors. I mean, wouldn't it be nice?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's right. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just sit in a room behind our computers or sit on a lake and write stories all day? No, like half of our writing life is marketing and promotion and strategy. And so I was doing that for companies. And so writing books on the side was actually its own full-time job, and it fed into my corporate life. I mean, there were things creatively that I brought into kind of my tech world, and there were things that I was doing for companies that I was able to leverage as an author too. So they've been kind of interchangeable, but writing definitely came first.
Yeah. And so your genre of choice is mystery, crime,
Thrillers.
um,
Yes.
thrillers.
Yes.
Yeah. And you have one coming out. So how many thrillers have you written though? How many do you have?
The Weight of Cold Things, which is coming out tomorrow, is going to be book number 16, and one of them was nonfiction. So earlier this year, I had a book published called The Me Factor, Your
Yeah,
Secret.
we'll talk about that in a
Yeah.
minute. We'll talk
Okay.
about, I really
Yes.
want to,
Mhm.
because so many, the people who watch are authors. So I know they're going to want to hear about that. But I want to talk first about the weight of cold things. So
Right.
share the premise of the book.
So The Weight of Cold Things is a mostly first person psychological thriller, very much a psychological thriller. And it's about a deputy sheriff in Jackson, Wyoming, who's basically hiding from herself, hiding from her past
Mm.
in a current case, kind of a topical crime that they're investigating, which is her missing boss, the sheriff kind of forces that reckoning with her past and the part that she's basically trying to outrun and that she can't grieve from, which is the loss of her husband. Her husband disappeared 6 months before the book starts. So her boss disappears and they spend weeks looking for him. And then she gets something from a deputy sheriff, I mean, from a state trooper in Alaska, of all places, saying, "We found the wallet of someone named Peter Barrett, and I think you know him. What do you want me to do with it?" And come to find out, there was a body found next to the wallet, and now she has to go to Dead Horse, Alaska to identify the body, which might be her missing boss. And the bad thing is, that's where her husband was last seen. So that's the reckoning between her past that she's been running from and just couldn't deal with, and the present. And that's just the beginning.
Yes, of course. That's just the beginning. We're not going to give any any secrets away. I was very intrigued though about the setting, and the setting influences even the title of the
Mm-hmm.
book.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about it's almost as if the setting is a character. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about the setting of the book.
Well, I mean, think of the name Dead Horse. Like when I discovered that there was actually a place called Dead Horse, I thought that it was just fiction. And then I looked into it, and there really is a place called Dead Horse. And the more digging and research I did, it's basically an oil drilling outpost north of the Arctic Circle. And really the heart of all oil drilling enterprise in Alaska. And yeah, it's a frozen tundra that's dark most of the year, and it's flat and bleak. I mean, there are hills around it. The Brooks Range is kind of in the distance around it, but it's essentially flat, and it's a very punishing place. And Wyoming also, in winter is a cold place, and there's kind of another part of the story that takes place there. That's why I called it the weight of cold things, the weight of what's buried, the weight of what we're running from. And I had a great technical advisor for the dead horse parts of the story, Richard Anderson, who worked in who worked in that oil field in the 1970s and 80s. And so I had him read the book and tell me everything that I got wrong, everything that I researched copiously, but it wasn't actually correct. And he helped bring that back to center. So that was a really lucky break. And I'm just so fortunate to have found him.
That is so good, because and thank goodness that there are people willing to read our books and give us feedback. And I have a cousin who's New York City, a retired New York City detective. And so
Mm,
he's been so helpful to me in my crimes
that's
and the
awesome.
jar. Yeah. So we're so lucky that we have those folks. Do you happen to have a copy of your book nearby?
I don't get them until Sunday. And yeah, my author copies came late this time, and I can't wait to get it, but I don't have anything to hold up and show you. But it's an amazing cover if you
It is a
look me
beautiful cover.
for
I saw it on Amazon,
okay.
and it's a beautiful, beautiful, and with her eyes, it really it's very evocative.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Thank you.
yes, so we'll make sure that everybody sees a copy of the cover when
Okay.
we post this episode. We're not to worry.
Can I
The
just say
cover
that
will be there.
the cover designer was Tatiana with viladesign.net. She's designed all like my last six or seven covers, and she's amazing.
She does a really good job. Yes. And you also have a book that recently came out that you mentioned a little bit earlier, and it's called The Me Factor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? Before we do that, I don't want to leave the weight of cold things yet, though, because I want to hear about Gree. Is that how you pronounce her name? Your
Free. Uh-huh.
protagonist?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
You know, give us a sense of her character. Like, what kind of person is she? What are her, I mean, she just lost her husband. Um, just give us a sense of who she is as a person.
So her name is Gretchen Gooding, and she goes by Gree. And her mother died a couple of years ago, and she has a very pained relationship with her father. And she kind of calls herself Gree to spite him. He doesn't like that name. He calls her Gretchen, but her mother, who died, called her Gree. That was her nickname for her. So she's taken on that identity kind of out of spite, but then, out of like habit. And she's a rancher. They're a ranching family from Cody, Wyoming. Cody is like 4 or 5 hours away from Jackson. That's where her office is. But she's a rancher with kind of all of the typical personality traits about being a rancher. I mean, she lives in a place where she's very close to the land. She's very close to her horses, where there are lots of spaces, and there's big sky, and there are lots of spaces in conversation too. There's kind of a
Mm.
communication style among ranchers that's very different among people who grow up and live in a big metropolis. There's a deep connection to the earth and to the land and to the ranch that they are stewards of, and to the animals that they take care of there, and that take care of them. So she has that personality, kind of like a strong silent type, very introspective. She's a really good investigator. She has a way of kind of, I think, bridging methodological thinking that's required in crime investigation with kind of listening to herself and her higher mind using instinct. I think all of the best investigators, I'm sure you would agree, have kind of like a bridge between both of those things. And I think she's a really interesting character. She taught me a lot, and I go really deep with this book. This is, I think, one of my darkest stories, as my readers have told me. So yeah, she goes through a lot in this book, but there's a big payoff, and she kind of comes to terms with things, and she learns a lot about what she's doing and why.
I love that you said she taught me a lot because our characters are so amazing and real, and they do teach us and they do take us into directions we didn't intend. And they're alive people. Those characters are alive. So you mentioned earlier that you also have the me fact.
Mhm.
Tell us about that.
The Meat Factor, and I do have that here. It's the first nonfiction book that I had written in 20 years, and it's kind of an extension of my consulting experience with Story Impact as a book coach. So what the title means, the Me Factor, is I had been seeing a lot of books and a lot of guidance and a lot of LinkedIn posts and articles about kind of fake marketing, like how to be the most interesting person in the room, how to pretend like you're extroverted in 5 steps. And I'm not saying that's all untrue, or that's not valuable, but I saw a gap, and the gap was about taking all of your quirky individuality and your kind of weird uniqueness that makes you stand out, and leveraging it. And instead of like kind of being shamed for it and stepping back, bringing it forward and using it to better connect with readers, because our job as authors isn't just to be visible, isn't just to make our books visible. We want the books and we want ourselves to be memorable to readers so that they keep coming back. And so that's the premise of that book, and it takes you through a process for how to do that and how to think about those things.
Wow. Can you give us one little tip?
One little tip is hmm, for using your me factor. I mean, I think a big part of it is identifying what your me factor elements are, but then bringing them
Mhm.
into your marketing. So, like, I have a friend, I have a friend who's a British author, and he was always picked on as a kid for having a pointy nose. And in the playground, you know how terrible kids can be making fun of you. And he wrote like a pointy nose detective style series, and he's leveraging that me factor. And he has videos where he actually like talks about that, and And yeah, so something like that, like one of my elements of me factor is I worked in corporate America for a long time and I wear business suits. That's just kind of, I'm not today because it's going to be 85 here today, but that's how I dress. That's how I kind of present myself. In when I'm talking to readers and talking to audiences is wearing a suit. That's just one of my sort of trademarks and my me factor. And I lean into that. And so some of my social media videos, you might see me wearing a suit. That's just kind of me looking like me, instead of being like overdressed or being too formally dressed, that's just me being me.
Yeah, I like that. I'll have to think about what my me factor is. I like that a lot. I've also, I mean, you are such an accomplished woman. So you also have a podcast as well as your consulting business. Tell us about your podcast.
So the podcast I had been hosting for the last 3 or 4 years. The podcast actually came before my consulting work in the magazine. So I interview wonderful authors like yourself, and we had a great conversation. And I do them on YouTube, and then I push them to all of the podcast platforms as an audio. And it's I try to dig deep into I call them books, meaning and purpose, about not just what books someone published, but why it matters to them, why it matters to their author platform, why it's going to matter to readers. I mean, so that kind of deep meaning piece is kind of a trademark of me and how I look at the world, not just what we're doing and what we're writing about, but like how it relates to the bigger picture and what we can take away from that. So I have some amazing conversations and I loved our conversation too. You weren't just talking about your books and your writing process, you were talking about your me factor, how all of those things relate to how you look at the world as an author and as a creator. So it's a lot of fun and I just love it. I'm on like my 53rd episode now, so it's fun.
Congratulations. Yes, it was a very good conversation. And, one of the things that I always try to do is lift social issues, addiction and foster care and whatever the unhoused. And so when I said earlier, I don't know what my me factor is, I do know what it is. Thank
Hmm.
you.
Hmm.
Thank you. Thank you.
Exactly.
And then you decided, like, okay, I have enough to do. I have a business and I have a podcast and I'm writing books, but I'm going to produce a magazine and just any magazine, a gorgeous chock full of all kinds of writerly, interesting things for readers and writers. What was the inspiration behind that?
Thank you, Karen. And I'm excited that you are writing an article for the October issue coming up. I can't wait to read that. Um, I, in the same way that people ask you, how did you get the idea for this book or for that book? A lot of times you can't pinpoint it to anything. I really don't know. I don't know where I get my ideas from for my books. I mean, I heard the word dead horse, and I basically wrote that whole book from that word. Everything came. That was the diving board. And since I had the podcast and the consulting. I was thinking I was thinking that the Story Impact platform would have four pillars, and so I also teach workshops. That's the third pillar, and a literary magazine just seemed kind of logical, I guess. But I do love graphic design, and I've done a lot of graphic design in my life, in my corporate life, and it's something that I really, really enjoy. And I've told people that Story Impact magazine is just the most creative fun I've ever had. I just absolutely love it. And it kind of feeds my hunger to lift authors up and to bring them visibility and their books and their stories. But yeah, it keeps evolving and issue 4 is going to be published on October 2nd, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I must say that when you mentioned it, and I thought, oh, okay, she has a magazine. But when I opened it and looked at it, it is it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous magazine, something that people would want to read, want to be a part of. So
Thank
before we tell everybody how to be in touch with you and how to tell us a little bit about your business. You've hinted at a couple of things, but what could an author, the authors that are watching this program, what could you do for them? What do you offer for them?
you. Thank you for that question. I appreciate it. There are a lot of types of book coaches too.
Hmm.
I'm less of like a manuscript coach, and I'm more marketing, branding, strategy, promotion. I mean, so I do have clients that are in the process of writing their first book. I also have clients that have six books out, and they're just wanting to, work on marketing their next book that comes out and kind of pull everything together. I mean, so what I do is I work with author branding to help an author understand who they are as a writer, who they are as an author. I do a genre analysis to look at their books in relation to the market, including like market positioning. Where is their book going to live in the literary landscape? Not just what shelf is it going to be on, but what types of conversations is it going to be a part of among readers? And then a really important part of it is identifying your readers, finding those readers, taking the branding, taking the book synopsis, taking the genre analysis, and using that to project and anticipate what readers need that book. Not just what readers could be interested in it, but there's a slice of audience of readers that are waiting for that book in particular, and it's about finding those readers and identifying them, and then building content on social media to reach those readers and creating kind of teasers about your book that will kind of capture their attention and make them curious and make them care and make them order your book and then come back for more. One of my favorite authors, Ruth Ware, I think she has a new mystery coming out at the end of August, and I've already pre-ordered it, and I'm like, oh my God, another one. I don't even remember what it's about, but I love her, and I love kind of the spirit that she brings to her books as this kind of modern Agatha Christie. Um, and I'm bought in, and I want her new book. And maybe I'll love it, maybe I won't love it as much as the last one, but I mean, she's grabbed me, and now I'm interested. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly what we're trying to do. People just are willing to read, not just even when you genre switch, because I genre switch, but having just wonderful readers who want to see whatever new book is out, even if the genre is a little different. Um,
That's
my
right.
through yeah. So this is a just a quick question, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but we're getting slammed, we writers, with scams, with marketing scams, with people promising, we'll get you onto this book club. And, they're all AI written, bots. But people have gone down the rabbit hole with them because they say such wonderful things about your book. And so you think, well, they get me. They understand me. And I wonder if that's impacting you at all.
Yeah, it is impacting me, and I found a way to leverage it. And I wrote an article about it in the April issue of the magazine. There are things that authors can do to capitalize on that nonsense that comes into our email inbox. And here's what it is. There could be a lot of good marketing copy in those emails that you can use to market your own book. I mean, so I encourage people to read through all the nonsense. It might be like 15 paragraphs of nonsense. I got one from Netflix recently that like is apparently very interested in making a series about like one of my books that's not even a series, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But I read the email, and I read everything that they wrote about the book. And there were a couple things, and I copied it and I put it into a document and I bolded a couple of phrases. And I'm like, cool, thanks for doing my job for me. I'm going to use that. Now I'm going to block you and bye-bye. And so that's my way of kind of like, taking what I want from it, but also blocking them so that I don't hear from them again.
It's really smart because I mean some of the copy is so like you're a
Mhm.
like you, but just lifting it. I love that. I love that. So
Yeah.
now you've got everybody intrigued. Remember, everybody, The Weight of Cold Things comes out tomorrow, and you can purchase it everywhere that books are purchased. You can find it on Barnes and Noble. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it in your, if you don't see it, ask. You can go to the library. You can go to your independent bookstore. If you don't see it, ask. But where, Lisa, can people be in touch with you? Get your magazine, find out more about your services, find about all your other books. Tell us how they can be in touch with you.
The best way to answer that question, Karen, is Linktree. So link.tr is the link tree. That's how you get to link tree accounts. And a link tree is basically like a whole listing of like everything that you would need to know about me. And so it's link.tr/author tolls. And if you can't get there, just go to lisatolles.com, and from lisatolles.com you can get to my email address, and it also has things about my consulting. The Story Impact platform is storyimpactconsulting.com. And you'll see a page for the podcast, a page for the magazine, a couple pages for my consulting services. So storyimpactconsulting.com, lisatolles.com, or linktree/author tolls.
Perfect. And I know all of you know, because I always ask you to do this when you do get in touch with Lisa. Please tell her that you met her on What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Thank you, Lisa, for a great conversation. Thank you all for watching or listening, whichever way you like consuming. What are you reading? What are you writing? We will see you all next week. Take care.
Take care. Thank you, Karen.